Hi everybody, this is a geometry lesson called Positions of Two Straight Lines. So for this lesson, we're going to imagine that we have two lines, and we want to learn the mathematical terms that you use to talk about how those lines relate to each other. So the first one we're going to talk about is if the lines are parallel. This is what that word looks like. Parallel comes from a Greek word, parallelos, which means side by side. So two lines are parallel if the distance between them stays the same along their entire length. So we can check that with this to make sure they are perfectly parallel. I'm going to tack down this first one. And then we're going to line up the other one so that it is perfectly the same distance all the way along its length. All the way to there. Okay, these two lines are parallel because no matter how far you go in that direction or how far you go in that direction, they are never going to touch. They're going to stay the exact same distance apart along their entire length. If little people were walking on them, these little people would stay the same distance apart for their entire life of walking on this line. They would always be exactly the same distance apart. That's a parallel line. Store this word over here. Another type of line, or another type of relationship between two lines, is when the two lines start close together. We're going to start on this end and get farther apart. They might start by touching, or they might start by just being close. In this case, we call these divergent lines. To diverge means to split apart. So if little people were walking on these lines, they would start close enough to hang out, say hi, and as they walked, they would get farther and farther and farther and farther apart until eventually they were miles and miles apart if our lines continued. These are divergent lines. They start closer together and get farther apart. Our last type of line is the opposite of divergent. So if divergent starts close and gets farther apart, convergent starts far apart and gets close. Starts far apart, moves closer together. Convergent lines will eventually touch. We're not going to make them touch on our little board right here. But remember that when you talk about a line, unless you put an endpoint on it, you imagine that it continues forever. So these lines continue forever until they touch. To converge means to come together. So these little people are going to start far apart, and as they walk down their lines, they're going to get closer and closer and closer together until eventually they can hang out and have a little party. But let's keep them 6 feet away for now. There we go. So we have an ability to pick up paper. We have parallel lines. Those are the ones that stay the same distance apart the whole time. We have divergent lines. Those are ones that start together and come apart. With sad little people, because now they can't hang out. And we have convergent lines, which start far apart and come close together with happy little people. You might just want to make some drawings of this for your follow-up. Maybe you want to grab a parent or a sibling or a pet, whoever you have around the house, and practice being parallel lines or divergent lines or convergent lines. Perhaps you'd like to make some art. Maybe you'd like to film your own video and make a little lesson just like this to show to other people. You can do whatever you'd like for your follow-up, but make sure you record positions of two straight lines in your journal so you have a record of what you did. And have a good day. Bye, guys.